Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30 p.m. on October 10th, 2024, and this is the regular monthly meeting of the Fitchburg's Transportation and Transit Commission. I'll call the meeting to order. We have no members of the public in the room, and I'm told that our one online visitor is not here for a non-agenda item, so we will go on to approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Is there any second? Thank you, Gabriella and
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, thank you. 75 years old. Are there any amendments or other discussion about the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that was passed unanimously. Next, the approval of the minutes from September 12th.
I'll move approval.
Second. Okay, Bill and Rick, thank you. Just for our remote scribe, Dina, all members are present of the commission. Any corrections or additions or anything? Seeing none, I would say, Dina, I think that it would be helpful if the staff report could just have bullet points of the general topics that Ross is bringing up. So rather than really nothing. I understand that it's a goal of the clerk to get the minutes down so as to save publication expenses, but I think that would be helpful. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That was unanimous. On to report from staff, the aforementioned.
Alrighty, so I have a couple of kind of more specific things I wanted to talk about. So if anybody has any questions about other things, let me know. But first, I wanted to talk about the Metro transit service disruptions. Those have been a big topic recently. So basically, in Fitchburg, where we've been affected by this is on Route B and Route 65 mainly. There have been a couple of other cancellations, but those are really the ones that have been seeing cancellations every day. Those are cancellations of trips, not the full route, but they're still impacting schedules and are obviously extremely inconvenient for users. So some of the reasons behind that Metro has released, they've put these out in press releases now, and then have also been sharing a little bit of information with their customers like Fitchburg. Basically, there's two kind of reasons for this. So They got a fleet of, I believe, 60 new electric buses for the BRT, basically. Right now, they're using those mainly on Route B and then the actual BRT on Route A. Those electric buses needed additional classroom training for the mechanics, so that classroom time took away from inspection time on their fleet of regular diesel buses. So you can't run the buses without the required inspections, so that's leading to the cancellations on the 65. There's also kind of the standard issues where if a bus breaks down, it takes time to get another bus out there, and that leads to delays or cancellations of trips to get them back on schedule. So that's kind of the main issue with the 65. And then the issue with Route B cancellations is they're using the electric buses on Route B, but there's no on-route charging available on Route B yet. So they have to send those buses back to the bus garage on Hanson Road to charge, which obviously takes additional time. And then they were also seeing issues with their chargers, which weren't charging the buses all the way, which leads to needing to charge them more often and additional delays. All of that was kind of supposed to be figured out during the 1,000-mile run-in period that the manufacturer recommends. From my understanding, Metro did that. That was all the training and kind of, no passenger time that you saw a few months ago with those buses. But even with that time, right when they started putting passengers on the buses, they started seeing additional issues, from my understanding. So, questions on that?
So we would work with a vendor. In my work experience, there was always a service level agreement that they had to achieve a certain percentage of 100%. Is there an SLA with the City of Madison Transportation?
So I was going to say, more broadly, those same memos had some solutions that Metro is pursuing. Do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, I mean, the gist of them is that New Flyer, the bus manufacturer, is on site fixing a lot of those issues with the new buses. So those are, obviously well within the warranty period because they're basically brand new. So hopefully those will be figured out fairly soon. And then as far as the diesel buses, they're in the middle of training 3 new mechanics. I believe they're 5 mechanics short. So they're training 3 new mechanics. They should be fully able to perform inspections, I believe, in about a week. And then they'll get started on hiring the remaining 2 mechanics that they're short, and then training them and getting them available to perform inspections. So Justin Struenberg, the Metro Transit General Manager, has told me that we shouldn't see any more cancellations by the end of the month of October.
And the cancellations that we do see are now baked into the schedule, so it's not a surprise, right?
Yes, and the cancellations are less prevalent than they were last week or the week before. They've been steadily having less and less trip
Increasing the number of
cancellations.
working buses.
Exactly.
And with regard to the charging thing, what they discovered was that the chargers were pumping too much juice into the buses too fast, and the buses would reset, and then they would have to do something else, and that's why they wouldn't get charged. And they are reprogramming the chargers so that they do not charge so fast and therefore screw up the charging process.
Yep.
And these are the charges at the new rapid stations, or these are the ones at the garage?
These are the ones that
Chargers
the
at the
B
bus
has to use that are at the
garage.
garage.
I'm a little sad, given that the Route A and B share the same stretch of road, that we couldn't do some kind of a bus swap mid-route, say, hey, this B is getting depleted, this A is pretty fresh, let's have them meet at the same station and swap roles.
The trouble with that, which is a reasonable idea, is that A and B are coordinated so that they go through in equal intervals through the isthmus.
I told you I was sad they couldn't do it.
Yes.
Okay, so before you went on that topic, I asked a topic which was a
Yes.
service level agreement. And by this, I mean the vendor, City of Madison. I don't mean the vendor, the bus providers. I mean, we paid money to the City of Madison to provide us with a certain level of service. Are they within that service level agreement, or do they even have a percentage uptime that they've agreed to?
So we do not have a percentage uptime that we have agreed to. We do have, I would have to look up the language, but there is a line in our service agreement that says that Metro must provide a reasonable level of service. It's not really
Reasonable.
defined.
Is there an opportunity, this is jumping ahead to expanded service, but is there an opportunity when service is expanded to establish a percentage that the routes would be serviced by their buses?
For this service expansion that we're gonna be talking about tonight for Route 75 and 65, no, there would not be any reworking of our contract.
Okay.
Basically, the way that our contract works is we are billed for an estimated number of service hours. And if we get greater than or less than that number of service hours by certain percentages, in the next calendar year, we get money taken off or added to our contract.
Okay.
So these hour shortages that we're seeing this year, if they hit a certain percentage of our total contract, would have our contract adjusted down in cost next year. So.
Okay.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I was thinking that you were talking about new flyers agreement.
Not
with
the bus vendors. The party that we pay is the City of Madison.
Yeah.
And Madison would have their own SLA with New Flyer.
Yes.
And to that point, then, is the agreement, the reasonable percentage, is that system-wide for all the routes that collectively serve Fitchburg, or is that, Route B could be a 100% operation and Route 65 they could just shut down? And, since it's such a small period of time, is that factored in like per route basis, or is it just a general, like all service lumped into one bucket?
That's a total percentage of our total contract, so every route. There's nothing called out at the route level.
But every route in the city limits of Fitchburg.
Yes.
In other words, they can have different percentage uptimes outside of the city, but when they're operating in the city of Fitchburg, it has to be reasonable. We don't have a number, but it has to be reasonable according to someone's
Yes.
judgment.
Yeah, they could, in theory, cut off all bus service in the city of Madison and just serve Fitchburg.
Yes.
And
Let's suggest that.
that would be in violation of our contract.
Speaking historically, the Metro is staffed up and equipped in terms of buses for normal times to provide 100% of the scheduled service.
Yeah.
And the contract envisions that. And so right now, we're going through some bumps that we have not seen before.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And the contract just absolutely does not take that into account. And it's not clear to me that it should, because once these startup things are ironed out, then we should be back to 100% service all the time.
In my experience, a lot of the contracts that we would establish, not City of Fitchburg, but from my professional career, we would not have SLAs until something like this happened, and then we would realize that we should have had an SLA so that nobody argues about what the term reasonable means.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good idea, but we're here where we are now. And when those contracts come around again, they'll be, the last time it was all the partners worked on the contract together and they all have the same contract, except obviously some provisions apply differently, like Coronas and so on, school district and so on. Well, thanks. Any other questions about this?
I'd just like to kind of get some background, Ross, if you happen to know about how they decide which routes are the ones that are canceled.
So what Justin Strulenberg, who again is the general manager for Metro, has told me and put in their press releases is they attempted to select the cancellations based on other available routes and other available times for the same route. The cancellations for Route B don't really follow that logic because they're running the electric buses on Route B, so they didn't really get a choice in those cancellations. But for the
65.
other routes, the 65 in Fitchburg, that was their stated reasoning.
Is it the cities of Madison's decision to use electric buses on B, or did we ask for them?
That's Metro's decision.
It's a requirement because as they go through the isthmus, some of the stations are center running that they're using, and the diesel buses don't have doors on the left side. So as they're calling B a hybrid route because it runs with all the traditional stations in the north and south, but across the isthmus, it's literally BRT.
It uses BRT stations, okay.
Yep.
And Ross, just another clarification from your standpoint. As a frequent Route 65 rider, subscribe to the mailing list and I follow them on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not seeing these delay notifications until days after they've already been into effect. Are you receiving, or do you know if anyone else in the city is receiving this information beforehand that, the city could proactively put it out there, stepping on Metro's toes a bit, but if they're not gonna do it, with all due respect, as a communications professional, I've kind of had some qualms with the lack of communication, and my neighbors have asked me to relay the same.
Yeah, so initially, when this started, I don't know, you said August 21st or so? That's
September 22nd.
September 22nd. We didn't receive notification from Metro until I asked about it. At that point, I believe that was the first day, I think I asked on September 24th or 25th, so a couple of days afterwards. I believe they had a webpage up that day that I asked, and I believe that was the first day they had a webpage up with cancellations. But the city is not receiving advanced notification besides just looking at Metro's service disruptions webpage.
Okay.
So, and I'm trying to be more proactive about posting any press release that Metro makes on the city of Fitchburg's social media, which Metro is also posting it on their social media, and the city of Madison also is as well. But those are kind of the major press releases, not necessarily the day-to-day cancellations.
My understanding is that Metro has been working really hard this week on trying to get the BRT stations and the isthmus message boards, and also their real-time bus tracking information to reflect these missing buses. Because in the initial stages, the buses would be announced but would not come to the stations. Of course, that is not relevant out here where we don't have those information panels, but the real-time tracking app would be. So you should use the transit app is the one that they're recommending and that I use. And that should show correctly now the next bus coming, even if it's not the next one scheduled. The next one scheduled is missing.
And I use the transit app as well and have also found it to be quite helpful. My concern is just the kind of the reactive communication nature rather than the proactive. Even before the BRT launched, in the past year or so, there have been times when there have been changes to 65 for a week, and I'm on all the lists that I can possibly be on.
Mm-hmm.
And the notification doesn't go out till Wednesday. Well, that doesn't help if it's already, okay, that's messed me up 2 days this week already. And the growing pains are understandable, and I certainly want to give folks grace, as I said to a driver on the 65 this evening when it broke down and we had no brakes and got stuck outside the nitty gritty for half an hour. Not a bad place to be stuck, all things considered, but again, trying to cut some folks some grace. I also think that they're not doing themselves too many favors, and I worry that affects the city as we're going to referendum in a few short days and asking voters for millions of dollars for, among other things, transit improvements. If we're not, if we're struggling to have this disconnect and we're alienating perhaps some of the current ridership, do we lose support and then we can't make those improvements that we would like as a city and as a commission because of factors that are outside of our control? So I don't know that that's a question, but I would say it's more of I'm on my soapbox for the moment.
It seems like you've gone to quite an extent to be as informed as you possibly can. And I would say that's extraordinary rather than typical. So what would we say as the City of Fitchburg's Transportation and Transit Commission is the official way that we would recommend that riders who intend to take one of the buses that service Fitchburg find out about cancellations? Is it the Transit app? Is that like if somebody called the city and said, hey, I need to know if buses are canceled or not, is that the statement that we as the city would make?
From what I've read, it's the Transit app and the Service Disruptions webpage.
Yeah.
Well, the transit app tells you when the next bus is coming. I don't know that it tells you about missing buses.
It won't tell you that this one, the one that you were expecting is canceled.
Right.
It just shows you that there isn't a bus when you expected.
Right.
But I'm going to exert executive privilege here. I think that we are going too far into the discussion phase. And so it would be great to propose solutions and things like that, but we haven't really noticed this to the public as a discussion topic. And I would ask that it be put on next month's agenda as a discussion topic. And then let's finish with any questions we have for Ross.
I actually have one more brief topic.
Ross, I'm sorry, could I have one question about the transit relay, and I promise I'm done. Just to look forward to next meeting, Alder Allen, I believe, earlier this week at council had mentioned or suggested that it would be nice to have somebody from Metro join us either in this space and or for council. Do we know if that's a feasible ask? And if so, I would certainly be open, I would be eager to hear from them.
So I need to discuss that with the city administrator, Chad Brecklin, and then figure out the best way forward on that.
Yeah, I'm sending an email to you guys about potential again for committee of the whole, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my other brief topic, hopefully, is basically a piece of software that is in the budget for next year called Streetlight. This is basically a way for city staff to get faster and better and more complete traffic data on the streets in Fitchburg. So right now, I have 2 of these machines. So these are radar sensors. They detect both directions of traffic, up to 4 lanes at a time. They give me speed and vehicle counts and a bunch of other statistics that they kind of generate from those 2 main things they track.
It looks pretty modern. I don't know why you'd want to get something different.
Well, so as I said, I have 2 of these. So to get good data, I have to leave them in the field for 2 weeks at a specific location. Where Streetlight is a software that uses connected vehicle data and phone GPS app data to basically, through a bunch of algorithms and machine learning and stuff like that, basically I can just click on a street and it will give me all the information that this gives me. So obviously not all vehicles are connected vehicles. Basically anything 2017 or newer will be a connected vehicle, besides like your really, really base level work trucks. Like if you get the lowest model F-150, that doesn't have the connectivity, but anything with like OnStar, Uconnect, Ford Sync, My Chevy, all that stuff is a connected vehicle. And then another one of their data sources is just like stuff like Google Maps or Apple Maps on your phone. So basically they take all that, they have their own network of real world trackers, these road tubes, cameras, anything you can kind of think of that would track cars. And they basically scale up the numbers that they get from those connected vehicles to match what they get from these, and then expand that out to the whole network that they're doing. So they've got a bunch of white papers on their website that they're more than happy to take your email address and name and phone numbers to get the white papers so they can sell you their software. But their salespeople already have my information, so.
They have many, many webinars.
Yes.
About why Streetlight is good for you, but also how to use it.
So yeah, that's just kind of a brief thing that I've been getting a couple of questions on and wanted to kind of answer some of those, so. That's my staff report.
Are you saying that it's already in a budget and will be purchased, or?
It is in the proposed budget for 2025.
The only way it would be removed is by a council amendment,
Yes.
Okay.
which I doubt, but always possible, I guess. Highly doubt.
Make a quick report on the ground up roads and their paving.
So Osmondson, part of Osmondson, Nesbitt, Fitchrona by Target, and then Seminole Highway from McKee north to the city limits. Those are going to be, we milled those earlier this year. They've been sitting in a milled state for a while, and much to the annoyance of a lot of drivers in the city. We are going to be finishing those with new asphalt starting on Monday. So I believe they are starting on Seminole Highway, then moving to Nesbitt, then Fitchrona. So those should all be done in 1 to 2 weeks because all they're doing is milling off 1 3/4 and then putting down new asphalt and painting. So we should be through that fairly soon.
My understanding was Osmondson is not gonna be done until next year, right?
Correct.
Because with the road reconstruction.
Yep, correct. We did not have the contingency in the road resurfacing project this year to do Osmondson, and since that's by far the lowest traffic road, we decided to do that next year. But that'll get the same treatment.
Heard reports from neighbors saying that it's not just unpleasant but dangerous to ride a bike on that section of road.
Concur.
Is Osmondson milled?
Yes.
So we did
It's a
mill it.
very short portion of it, so there's a lot
Yeah,
of it that is.
what are the boundaries on that? Do we know?
I mean, we know whether I have them at the top of my head.
Tell the public.
While you're looking that up, for Micah, who might not have heard it last time, they used a water-based product on the roads that nothing will stick to, and so they had to mill it off before they were do any kind of a surface maintenance.
Is the idea, if this was to happen again in the future, that we would wait to mill the road until we were able
Well, we
to
won't use that product
adjust the
again.
budget? So are these the only roads that had that?
No, so basically it wasn't necessarily a water-based product, it was an asphalt-based slurry seal. So now what we do normally for surface maintenance is a chip seal, and the difference between a chip seal and a slurry seal is mainly the size of the aggregate that you use. Slurry is like sand size, chip seal is, you know, what you see, it's like pea gravel type size.
Yeah. Because what happened though, we went to do this road and we realized at that time then that they had used this previously, and so that's when we.
No.
Okay. I guess my question is like, why would
There was a
we
different solution in mind. They were going to do 2 layers of chip seal.
Yes.
And then the evaluation was that the first layer of chip seal indicated that a second layer would not do the trick. And so then there was a budget amendment by the council at the end of September to move $300-some thousand from contingency to get these actually paved.
Yeah.
Okay. So
With
we
hot
didn't know
mix.
until we milled them.
Yeah, so basically,
hot mix asphalt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, the original plan was 2 layers of chip seal, what we thought would get these roads smooth enough. And then after the first layer of chip seal, that was obviously not going to be the case.
Then do we know what other roads in the city had this done previously so that we can plan in the future?
Yes, we do, and we won't be, you know, starting in this way. We will just be going straight to the mill and mill down 1 3/4 and overlay with asphalt. It's more expensive, but it's.
But it's not more expensive than doing a layer of chip seal before you do that. Or making people wait and drive on the rough road.
When the paving is being done, will those roads be completely closed?
No, they will basically be doing 1 lane at a time. They'll be flagging traffic around the construction vehicles.
There was a little bit of boilerplate in the announcement that says that they will start on the 14th and finish by mid-October. And I don't think the mid-October date is good because that would indicate around the 15th. So they probably just didn't notice that part of it.
Well, initially it would have started on like the 7th or something.
Yes, it was
Yeah, then it got pushed
initially
back.
target week.
All right, any other questions for staff? All right, report from the council. Bill?
Yes, so we had the week without driving from September 30th to October 6th. I made it the whole week. Gabriella made it the whole week. I encourage you to watch the council meeting. She gave us an extended story of her misadventures.
It's quite interesting and also inspiring.
Alder Maldonado said he's going to be taking the bus to work instead of driving from now on, which is positive. One other alder spoke with me afterwards and said he didn't quite make it the whole week. He had 1 trip to Milwaukee that he had to do by car, but otherwise made it, the rest of the week. And Alder Rafadari expressed some interest. I don't know that she participated at all, but after it was done and she heard Gabriella's story, she was
psyched. Huh?
Yes, her interest was piqued.
I made it till the weekend when I had to go places with my wife who was not participating.
If you made her drive, then
Yeah.
I did, I carpooled.
there you go.
That's carpooling.
Yeah. A couple updates on ongoing developments. There's a 110-unit multifamily building going up east of the rail line off of Central Park Place over in uptown Fitchburg, near the Lafayette Apartments. So I presume that will have some transportation implications. That's in the general area of the Capstone project, and I don't know what the current status of that is and the work that got put in and how that's affecting the overall design of the neighborhood. I don't know if Plan Commission knows any better on that, but
I'd have to look at my notes.
I had emailed Deanna about that, because I was curious, since that's right out, my way as well. And she had said that it was completed, and I believe Alder Gerhardt, I think, we had discussed it briefly, and you'd said that there was some mention of it at Plan Commission at one point, but it was not, the final report was not released publicly. I did respond to Deanna and ask why that was. But I did get her response on that. I think this is a couple weeks ago.
Let me see if I have. Well, so the question was about why no mixed use?
Well, no, just, this building is going in, and it isn't mixed use, right? It's just 110 units
Yeah.
of multifamily housing there. And I just wanted to know, how does that fit in the overall picture that was painted by that capstone project? And I don't know whether that capstone project resulted in any particular plan that was.
My understanding was the capstone project was focused on the corridor that would become kind of a commercial corridor potentially, and not which that unit, that this new building is off of that thoroughfare.
Okay. Well, there was, I remember going to a meeting where they said that perhaps Central Park Place would be a pedestrian mall, would be turned into a pedestrian mall rather than having
That's the
car
portion
traffic.
That's the portion of Central Park Place that's southeast of.
Okay,
of
so not the
Lacey.
entire stretch of it.
Not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the area, if you turn right into Central Park Place when you're going northeast, and you go through a narrow entrance into a very wide area, and that block is supposed to be the shopping high street of Uptown. And it's so wide because it's back in angle parking.
Mm.
But right now, it's just, tradespeople park their vehicles there overnight.
Okay.
But that will be, it's a smart code, so it's gonna, the rest of the approvals will go through staff. So, but it should go up soon theoretically.
Okay.
It's maybe as soon as this fall, they might start.
For those uninformed, such as myself, capstone refers to what?
It's a UW student project.
Typically seniors.
If you Google capstone Fitchburg Uptown,
That'll get you there.
then a Fitchburg webpage will come up. Thank you. I also didn't know about this, so I just did that.
In the Jamestown Quarry area, this is off of McKee Road on the north side, across from the Super Target, along Fitch-Rona Road after it bends over to the east, there will be a new 273 unit multifamily building going up there, and that's the Texas donut, Texas wrap, whatever they call it, where there's parking in the center of the building, and you will park on whatever floor your apartment is on. Then also on the north side of McKee, but between Spoke Drive and where the Badger State Trail is, there will be a new YMCA going up there at some point in the near future. I was going to talk about the Seminole Fitch-Rona Nesbitt.
What's the status of that project? Is that like introductory conversation with Plan Commission, or do they have a comprehensive development plan or site plan approved, or what?
For that Jamestown.
For YMCA.
YMCA, oh, I'm sorry. It's very early stages.
Okay, so it's just
There is
discussion.
a concept of the outside of the building, but that's it,
Okay.
essentially.
Council passed the no parking ordinance change for Brassica Road near Forest Edge School. Sidewalk replacement is proceeding. Public hearing had to be delayed just because there was a mail merge macro massacre that when notices were sent out to people that had the wrong name with their address on it. So the public hearing is now going to be at the October 21st Board of Public Works meeting rather than the one from this past Monday.
This will be the public hearing for the assessments.
Correct.
This won't affect the timing of that project because the contractor wasn't planning on starting yet anyways.
Till next year?
Thankfully.
That's great.
What's that?
Till next year, or?
No, they're doing it this year.
Okay.
It'll be it'll be
But
this
not
fall.
starting it yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Stoner Prairie Park on the north side of Lacey Road near Seminole Highway area. Contractor was selected for putting in the park shelter and the playground, and that's an area park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that will draw some amount of traffic there, although that park is surrounded by a pretty good network of multi-use paths for people to get there on foot and by bike. Today is National Walk to a Park Day, and if you walk to a park, which you should take a selfie, hopefully tonight with the aurora in the background.
The aurora is supposed to be really great.
And you can email your photo to Lisa Sanford with the city, and then she will compile them all, and I
Make
presume.
a social media splash.
Yes. October 15th is White Cane Safety Day. There was a proclamation at the council meeting, and the entire month of October is Pedestrian Safety Month. So, there you go.
Any questions on council actions for Bill? Bike and Ped Commission.
I was not able to attend the last meeting. I was in the Grand Canyon, so
Oh,
I
good.
didn't go.
But I was, so I'll make a report. I wasn't planning on making a report, but I can report that they had a very short meeting that started at 7 a.m., a business meeting, and then they worked on the bike and ped plan the rest of their normal time. And that will continue monthly. And there's some people who are not on the Bike and Ped Commission who will be helping as a steering committee for the Bike and Ped Plan, and I'm one of them. And so that's going to be happening. And as we get out of the biking season, there's not too much business going on. I mean, they're not working on projects or anything other than the Bike and Ped Plan update.
What's the timeline on that?
I can't say, but I believe, so it's budgeted for this year, and I think a consultant is finally on board, MSA, I believe.
Yeah, I believe the contracts are going to Bike and Ped at the next meeting on November 5th, and then council the week
We'll
after
approve the
that.
contract,
Yeah.
and then the contractor will be on board. But right now, Mark Hamilton, the chair, is progressing, working through, existing conditions and stuff like that, and trying to make lists of things that were proposed in the Bike and Ped Plan and done, and proposed in the Bike and Ped Plan and not done, and so on. And there was a general mismatch between the budget for the update and the scope of work. And so in discussions with the eventual contractor, it was agreed that the Bike and Ped Plan and city staff would be doing a lot of this kind of existing conditions work, getting the lists ready and so on. So that takes care of the minutes. Bike and Ped Plan, Plan Commission.
Bill stole all of my items.
Let the agenda show that the Plan Commission goes first, and we'll alternate from then on. All right. Because the Plan Commission gets them the week before, and pretty much then we hear them.
There will be a busy plan commission meeting next week.
All right, we have nothing referred to us by the council, so we'll go into discussion items. The first one, according to this, is Fitchburg parking requirements. And I'll kick this off since I suggested this and did a little work. So parking reform is a big thing. It's become apparent to people who've looked closely at the subject, like urban planners and sustainability activists and so on, that there's way too much parking in urban areas in the United States in general, and that this prevents the building of walkable neighborhoods, which are necessary so that people do not have to drive everywhere. And driving everywhere is a big source of emissions and carbon in the atmosphere, and there's a lot of stuff about that. I'll jump ahead and gloss over that. One of the causes of too much parking is a thing called parking standards or parking requirements. And this was a seminal book. It's called The High Cost of Free Parking by Donald Shoup, who is emeritus now, but was a professor at Berkeley, 2005. And it discusses the kinds of parking requirements that most cities have in their zoning codes, which say things like one parking space per 1,000 square feet of office. And they're very specific, how many you need for a lane of bowling and how many you need for 100 square feet of pool area and every other use. These parking requirements, as Shu points out in his book and has been well documented, are generally based on assumptions and guesses and then copied from municipality to municipality without any basis in fact or science or law or anything. And so one of the things that I think we should do on a policy basis is get rid of our parking requirements. And right now we have no parking requirements in our ordinances, but we have a development guide that is on the other information of our planning website, and it has this page 29 in it that says the city has motor vehicle parking standards. These standards include the number of parking stalls required based on the proposed land use, etc. And that leads you to a 5-page document that was approved in '96 and revised in 2010, which says things like office, 1 stall per 300 square feet, bowling alley, 5 stalls per bowling lane. And so it's this much, well, it goes down to here. You got this in the packet. And so the other thing I included in the packet was this email about parking reform. It starts out like this. And I put that in there to kind of indicate that this is not a crazy idea, that this is something that's happening all over the country. But since then, I went through and developed this page of excerpts from our comprehensive plan that Ross emailed you this afternoon, and I'm handing out now, that basically says, we already agreed to do this, that this is our 2020 adopted comp plan, and it says we're going to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips, reduce automobile dependency, manage the parking supply, reconsider minimum limits, that's under review parking requirements, and consider the use of maximum limits. And it goes on. So I feel like we have a mandate to do this, and what I've done to start the discussion is to replace that first page of requirements with this, which is basically stuff from the comp plan. We want to reduce single occupancy vehicle trips. We want to not subsidize single occupancy vehicle trips by providing excess parking everywhere. And then we'll be able to build closer together so that things will be walkable, that we will have more tax base per acre and per mile or foot of infrastructure so that we can afford to run our city more easily. Things will be more pleasant and less polluted, and I could go on and on. But basically what this says, instead of you shall have this many spaces per this, is we have adopted policies to encourage developers to develop transportation demand management programs, to encourage employers to develop in ways to reduce single occupancy trips, a goal to reduce automobile dependency, and an objective to manage parking supply. And so I list a whole bunch of transportation demand management techniques, and then I say, only after applicable TDM tools are planned for implementation, develop only the minimum amount of parking that you need to meet your needs. And I state here that Fitchburg does not have minimum on-site parking requirements as considered imposing maximum, and I quote the comprehensive plan. So this is a draft. You can barely see the watermark. It's supposed to say draft. It's a jump ball for our discussion, and I am interested in whether folks think this is a good idea. Oh, one more thing to say is that this is an adopted policy of the Plan Commission and Public Works Director or City Engineer at the time. And to get it fixed, we only need to do the same thing. Have the Plan Commission approve it, the City Engineer sign off on it, and it will replace the current document with all the requirements. There is a zoning code rewrite planned for the future next year, I believe.
Yes.
And
As well as a major comprehensive plan.
And a major comprehensive plan update. But this is in the current comprehensive plan, and people say that we should not do plans and let them sit on the shelf. So I say, let's do this, because we already have people who are planning big box and junior box stores up in the Wingra Quarry subdivision, saying that the city is making them build more parking than they want, and that they think they need. So let's do this, is my thought, and I'd like to hear everybody else's thoughts. And if we all think this is a good idea, then we can say, what are the next steps, staff? And one of the next steps will be for staff, some staff member to look at this. But I've tried to do as much work as possible because our planning director, Deanna, has told me that she has no staff time to work on this. So I feel like they might be able to carve out a little staff time to review things that we've written and that we think we like.
So I just wanted to add one more
staff
piece
report.
of context.
Yeah.
So while this is a, adopted policy, planning and public works staff does not count parking spaces for new developments or even tell developers about, the 2010 version of these parking requirements. So I've talked with Deanna, and she's more than happy to just delete the reference out of the development guide and delete this document off of the website.
Okay.
And handle it in the zoning code update and plan update.
That would be interesting. I just wanted to check. I've got my pages out of order here.
I'll follow up on that too, because I've talked to Deanna about this, ask a question.
So there are these driveway standards, and I think that these are things that we currently use.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
we generally just review what the developer has, and if they are way out of whack, then we say that, but.
What do you and Deanna and Tim think of the idea of introducing TDM to developers, which is mandated by the comprehensive plan?
That would be a better question for Deanna, and that's more of a planning thing than a public works thing.
Other conversation.
Just as a question of protocol, these came to us at 2:30 this afternoon.
That was terrible, I apologize.
And so, although we have copies in front of us here, are we free to discuss this? Or because members of the public who may be interested in this particular topic can't see these
We
right
won't see that
now?
until the minutes.
Are they,
Yeah.
are they things that we should refrain from discussing? Or are we free to have a free discussion about them, even though they're?
I think that since the general topic is noticed, that we are good.
Yes, I talked with a couple of other staff members about this, we're free to discuss it. These will be added to the minutes of this meeting, like Bill said, so they will be publicly available.
Think of this just as Steve prepared a speech.
Sure. Yes.
Written down for your convenience.
Right.
I obviously don't want to speak for the planning department, but I have been asking questions about parking when it comes up and there lists the amount of parking spaces per unit or whatever, and ask them, is this how much parking spaces you want? Can we do less than this? And typically what the answer has been is, this is what we think we need. So the planning department certainly is not instructing people in any way to put in more parking than they desire.
They being
I think
the developers.
The developers.
Okay.
So I think
Accepted this way.
yes, but I don't know that, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible that they're referencing this, but the planning department does not. So anyway, I think it's possible that we can get rid of some of this on a staff level. But yeah, they're not insisting on parking requirements for developers. Typically what they say is that they want that number for their, to sell their apartments or rent their apartments.
And
So-
on the other hand, I mean, I was told at the May 28th council meeting by the developer, we don't put in any more parking than is required by the city. And there's a couple other examples. The Seminole Pool architectural design review document says Fitchburg's parking standards call for 1 stall per 75 square feet of water surface, blah, blah, blah. And so the YMCA at Spoke Drive says this facility will be approximately 85,000 to 100,000 square feet and provide about 300 plus parking stalls. The final number will be appropriate for the final size of the building. And I'll point out that 90,000 is in the middle of 85 to 100,000, and you divide that by 1 stall for every 300 square feet, you get the 300 stalls they're talking about. So I think they've looked at the document.
The engineers that do these developments do not want to get comments back from Public Works and planning staff that say you did not meet this requirement. So they will go through that development guide and reference everything, and they will compile them all and say they will submit a project that complies with all of these rules that they can find. So the other thing that comes up is that this is a movement. It's came out of Strong Towns and the Shupistas, which is an online group, and now it's been kind of consolidated into a nonprofit called the Parking Reform Network. And the Parking Reform Network will give us brownie points for repealing this. And that's something that a feather we can put in our caps if we're interested in that as a progressive, forward-leaning, sustainable city. So there are some advantages of repealing it rather than just like never existed.
I wanted to make one more point about the Jamestown Quarry, the Winger Quarry, the Seminole Pool, and the YMCA are all right along McKee Road. And so if we can get an extension of Route 75, that should greatly, relieve some of the parking requirements here, or demand, I should say.
Good point.
When I saw this, my first reaction was, why is this the genesis of this happening in the Transportation and Transit Commission? Why isn't the Plan Commission asking transportation, can you help us come up with intelligent approaches to reduce the amount of parking that we ask developers to place in their properties? So it was a little bit surprising to me that we're talking about parking as sort of the first group within this, rather than it coming from the Plan Commission to ask transportation what expert advice we can give to the Plan Commission.
I can answer that. I chaired the Plan Commission for 2 years, but since that time, I have had 3 mayors who have not been willing to appoint me to the Plan Commission, so that's why it's coming in this commission. It's a very practical matter.
I think it's the prerogative of, I think committees bring forward things that they're passionate about. That's just the nature, I think, of how citizen-generated committees work, in my opinion. I think like RCC has been another, or Tree Advisory have been examples of committees that the individuals appointed felt that there were certain issues that they wanted to bring forward, and they advocated for those as members of the commission. So I think it's appropriate for committees to bring forward stuff like this. As far as the Plan Commission specifically asking for it, it's certainly come up several times, probably more so generated by me, started by me when I asked those questions. But honestly, the Plan Commission agendas are just packed. Like we spend 3+ hours just covering the agenda. So it's not like we're generating ideas for discussion that we would then
Plan
share
Commission
with
is
others.
very project focused, I would say.
It's very like the agenda is what the agenda is, and we go through that. There's not a lot of opportunity
Like
for
Public
discussion.
Works is very project focused. And I feel like we are the people that can come up with policies and
RCC and Tree Advisor are other examples of ones that are committees that are more discussion focused.
And
Because there's less actual resolutions coming forward through the committees.
well, I was just gonna say, one of the main reasons to have a council member on every committee and commission is so that if an idea germinates within said committee or commission, you've got a sponsor for a resolution.
Fair enough, and certainly, you know, your insight is helpful in informing us here that this is something we shouldn't spend time on because Plan Commission will think it's dumb, or, oh no, Plan Commission would really appreciate it if someone, a transportation committee came forward with some recommendations to help developers reduce the amount of parking.
That possibly would be a more elegant way for it to happen, but I think this is probably the more realistic way that it would happen. But it also is a good reason for me to be on this commission as the Plan Commission appointee. I think it's a perfect example of why this commission probably should have an appointee from Plan, so that there is some communication between the committees. I do a report from Transportation Transit at each Plan Commission meeting as well, so reporting back, and so I'd be very happy to bring this to them and get their initial thoughts at the meeting next week, so.
And I think I said in the email that the comprehensive plan tells us that transportation and land use need to be planned in an integrated, holistic way together. And nothing perhaps exemplifies that more than parking. Because the parking gets laid out of the land, but it's for transportation purposes. So I guess my question for this group is, does this seem like, I tried to justify it. Again, I apologize for not having this ready sooner, but I tried to justify it based on our comp plan, that this is something that a past council has already asked us to do, has asked the city to, and staff to do. And if you want to, there was a webinar yesterday that conflicted with a bike ride, and so I took a bike ride. But by the Parking Reform Network for the Active Wisconsin program, which is We Are an Active Wisconsin Together community, and we're members of this program. And that webinar was by the Parking Reform Network representative to basically say why parking reform. And they went into a lot of the stuff that is case studied in this book about these requirements are total junk and how much harm it causes cities. They have diagrams for the biggest 100 cities in the country of how much of their downtowns are covered with surface parking lots and how damaging that is. So anyway, if you are interested in background, I will send to Ross to send to everyone the link to that recording, which I watched today. And but I think the next step is to decide whether we think this is important and how we want to go ahead with it if we do. So straw poll on how important this is.
I'm certainly interested in exploring it. I would like to talk about it with Plan Commission. I think that's an important piece.
I'm definitely in favor.
I love this. And I mean, for residential, you know, if we're building apartment buildings, I think the developers probably know how many parking spots they want to be able to sell the apartments that they want to sell, or But I'm very, very interested in reducing the amount of like parking, asphalt sprawl for business. And I'm very interested in doing that.
And to your point, if somebody please more knowledgeable, correct me if I'm wrong in this recollection, but I believe I remember hearing something long ago that the number of parking spaces is roughly determined by like, is there enough room for everybody on Black Friday to park at the mall? Well, with online shopping, Black Friday is certainly not what it once was. I've never seen the Fitchburg Target parking lot, the back half used. I think of outside of Fitchburg, like Westtown Mall, all the outlots over where the former Toys R Us is have been sitting there for, there's probably more cars or, parked in our lot right now that have been there in the last year.
All of Fish Hatchery Road, like the whole length of that is just a giant parking lot.
Yeah.
And that's half full. The Pick and Save parking lot is a third full.
And I think we've also had such a fundamental societal shift in the last few years post-pandemic of, the everybody commuting downtown to the big office buildings. Look how many of the state office buildings are going to be able to be consolidated because so many more people are working from home. And other offices like mine, for example, are more hybrid, and there's the hoteling option. So, you wouldn't need as much parking in an office park or for, those more office uses because, there are fewer people going in there, and when they are, they're alternating on days. Generally has been my experience. So I'm certainly interested in going into this in more depth.
When do you next meet?
Tuesday.
So,
I'd be interested in sending some of these materials in advance to just let them know I'll be covering it in my transmission and transfer.
right, so you have all of these now.
Yes.
I think they're in Word, and I would probably put them in PDF for your packet, but you could get the chair, that's Julio, right? Oh, by the way, the mayor expressed her support to me for this idea. So you could put them in your packet and have a discussion and report back.
Sure.
Okay. And I think that I understood from our discussion so far, if I can find the page, with the original things that this group is generally in favor of getting rid of those very specific requirements. And the questions that may remain are, do we want to put in something about transportation demand management? Do we want to have a bunch of fanfare in repealing our parking requirements, or just do it quietly? So are those some of the open questions? Are there other open questions that we think?
I have been on building large building projects in both the city of Madison and here in the city of Fitchburg. And one of the things that stands out to me in our work with the city of Madison was the requirement that the city planning commission had for the developer submitting the plan to have a specific bicycle and pedestrian plan as a part of what was submitted. And I don't know if we do that here, but when I looked at this TDM and set of bullets that you provided, I thought, what we've written here is to say, and I think, before the word consider, you're saying the developer should or consider, that one approach could be that we require a developer to provide to the Plan Commission, and maybe also for review by transportation, a transportation demand management plan for the building that they're proposing as a part of the conditions of the Plan Commission approving the plan, so that they think through this and respond with a document that shows that they've considered these various areas and why they either apply to that particular building or don't apply as a requirement, rather than just a you should consider this, and here's a handful of ideas. And they may then need to engage some engineering firm that specifically works in the area of transportation demand management. But if we really wanted this to be both considered as well as sort of responded to, rather than say, thanks for the bulleted list and we considered those and none of them really apply, to say, I want to see your plan for what you have considered and what each of these areas or whatever areas are appropriate for the building are things that could be implemented that could help to reduce parking.
Other thoughts on Rick's idea?
Yeah, under what circumstances is a developer required to do traffic impact analysis? And how much of, traffic demand management goes into said analysis, if anything at all?
Generally, it is a case-by-case request from Public Works, whether they have to do a traffic impact analysis or not. And generally, the only time that I've seen any of, the type of transportation demand management stuff put in there is when it is helpful for the developer to have to do less work on our roads, because they can say, this many people will take the bus, and therefore we don't have to change this intersection to a signal.
Yeah, change it to a signal or extend a turn pocket or, I remember the signalized intersection at the Hy-V driveway. It's our only private driveway signal. Not even Target got a signal, but when Hy-V went in, then they needed the signal.
Never thought of that. Yeah.
I think some of these things maybe the developer wouldn't do, like organized carpools and van pools, but, so I don't know if a plan is too strong, but I agree, they should have to respond to this. Because if they go through, as you're saying, and check a box, if they say, well, this isn't actually a requirement, they're just gonna, I think they should, whether a plan is too much, even if it's like 2 paragraphs about how you considered this and why they came up with their parking numbers. Because maybe they do need those numbers and they use the Fitchburg requirements as an excuse for that, but I think they should have to explain why they came up with the number they did. So I like that idea, even if it's a little smaller.
And to kind of continue that as well, my thought is, I wonder to what extent this adds additional requirements of a developer that perhaps when we're already in a housing crisis, does that slow down the process or add cost that then gets, of course, passed on to the rent? And I also wonder if we would want to provide some guidance that if you're building one single family home outside the urban service area, are you subject to the same transportation demand management planning and responding to those questions as if you're, developing Hartung Fields and you've got, 400 apartments in, one block. So I wonder if there's some level of, the more units, the more comprehensive a development is at, making that a requirement versus a suggestion or a guideline if you're, developing 2 duplexes. Not that I would want to, kind of allow people to kind of skirt things doing it one at a time that way. But I think there would be more benefit and more potential concerns if this was something we wanted to do and we didn't have a requirement. I think it would be more of a concern in some of those higher density areas where folks, from what I understand, are generally more likely to use those services when they're available.
That's a good point. I wonder if that it could be tied to certain smart code categories?
Well, problem is that we don't have very many smart code districts, just 3.
The city of Madison has a TMD ordinance.
So,
If you search transportation demand management.
I'm gonna jump in here.
Madison
I love your idea. If I thought that it was feasible at this stage, I would definitely go for it. But that would
what I was looking for was just some ideas to give developers when they look to see how many parking spaces do I need. I said, oh, there's a whole list of things I should do to reduce the amount of parking I need and that the city doesn't have any minimums. If we go the way that you're proposing and that Madison has gone, that will be part of the zoning code rewrite, along with accessory dwelling units and things like that. And that will be the thing that will be sensitive by zoning district. Say, obviously, single-family homes have to store the cars and the bicycles all the time. They're not being driven. And we have no requirements on them right now. We have requirements that their driveways be paved, maybe, but as you go up through the zoning districts, there are more and more requirements because they're more and more impactful development-wise. So I think that's a great idea, and that it should be part of the zoning code rewrite, and that we should be involved in the zoning code rewrite, even though maybe the Plan Commission would lead it. And we should be asking for that. Elizabeth?
Where is the line? Like, I'm surprised that the committee was, it says parking shall be followed the standards, they're called requirements. This feels like something I'm surprised that just like a committee was able to adopt. So where is the line? Like, could we require at least a response or a write-up to recommendation? Where is the line between where the Plan Commission could accept and it would require and change?
I don't think that this parking and driveway standards, well, I'll take that back. There are a lot of standards that Public Works has for example, things like roads and stormwater inlets and driveway aprons and every other thing that are just too technical to rise to even the Board of Public Works. Staff says this is what we need, Board of Public Works will okay it. So I think that was probably what the thinking was back in the day here, but now that we know that these kinds of requirements are so damaging to cities, and I wanted to make a point back to, I forget who mentioned it, about the cost of implementing something like TDM. TDM saves money compared to parking. In the webinar, I thought that, well, at least in Fitchburg, a number for single surface parking stall, asphalt, curb and gutter is like $1,500, but they quoted $5,000. And then structured parking is like $55,000 a stall. And under building parking, where there's inefficiencies and a lot more structure and things have to be right, can be $75,000, $85,000 a stall.
At the initial
at construction time, and then there's maintenance for all of these things.
The initial schematic design for the new police facility had 36 stalls underground for a cost of $4 million. So that was like $110,000 per stall.
But it was a police department.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, parking is very expensive, and reducing parking not only saves the city money, it saves the developer money. So. All right, do we have a path forward?
Yeah.
Plan Commission is good. We'll put this on the agenda for next time, except that we might give it short shift because we have something that we did. Vision Zero next time too. So we'll put it on as a time available item. Any other parting shots on this discussion? Thank you all. Appreciate the feedback. Current and potential paratransit eligibility areas. This has to do with paratransit is available within a fixed distance of an all-day, everyday fixed route.
Yep, I can kind of
go ahead.
Just give some facts on it before whatever discussion. So yeah, like Steve said, paratransit is generally available within a half mile of an existing all-day Metro Transit route. I'm going to share my screen. You guys are seeing my notes. I should have had this pulled up a second ago. So this is the service map for paratransit. It's on Metro Transit's website. If you go through some of the links, here's the kind of breadcrumb trail to get there. So the service runs 5:30 a.m. to midnight on all weekdays, weekends, and most holidays, except for Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. There are some other limitations on holidays, but if you need to, you can read about it on this page. This is the current extent of paratransit. Obviously, we're focusing on Fitchburg. So you can kind of see how far south this goes. Generally,
And put your finger on the senior center there. You can see it's not within. It's just above the word Fitchburg, I think, or right.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm on the wrong side of Lacey. Yeah, so this is a senior center. We're close, but not in the
But no cigar.
area. So within this zone, you can call for a paratransit ride if you're eligible, and they'll take you to where you want to go within the zone. So Fitchburg pays for this. It's part of our Metro Transit contract. We get billed for the amount of paratransit miles within the city of Fitchburg, and if you go to another municipality, we get billed for half that trip.
So one of the questions I had about this going in was, whose rules are these? And they're the city of Madison's rules?
These are Metro Transit's rules.
They come from federal rules, though, I believe.
Oh, they do. So
Paratransit is part of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
okay, and this half mile then is a federally,
I believe so.
determined distance? So in other words, if a city wanted to offer paratransit throughout its entire city, regardless of what was serviced part of the day or all of the day, that would not be possible, or it would not?
It would be possible, we would just have to pay for it ourselves.
Yes.
Fitchburg Flyer.
A key thing here is that this is federally funded service
So
Yes,
the
federally
city of
subsidized.
Madison receives federal funding
to cover this.
because of the half mile distance.
Because we conform to the federal rules, and so the feds pay for it.
Okay.
It's just like if you go to a doctor that participates in Medicare and get billed the Medicare amount, Medicare will pay for it.
Yes, got it.
And just to be clear, the feds pay for part of this. Fitchburg pays for another part.
I think,
Okay.
if I remember correctly, about 700,000 and change comes out of our pocket, and something like 1.2 million is federal funded for the city of Fitchburg.
For paratransit?
No, for transit
Okay.
as a whole.
Okay. Is it split up? Do we know the paratransit number versus the transit number?
It is in our contract. I can provide that. That contract is in our minutes from earlier this year when we discussed it.
Okay.
But I can send that out after the meeting. So with this, we've been talking about expanding Route 65 and Route 75. On this map, you can see this is Route 65. It goes through Fitchburg on East Sherrill and up to Terra Vista, through Rimrock up into Madison, and eventually goes all the way to the hospital. And then this is Route 75. It comes down from the Capitol Square, goes down Fish Hatch, then all the way out to Epic along McKee. Right now, those are both peak hour only routes, basically rush hour in the morning and evening. So they do not expand our paratransit network. We've been talking about, with the referendum, making those all-day routes, and they would expand our paratransit to cover these areas that I just clicked on the map. These are approximate, so they would follow actual streets or lot lines, not these organic half-mile buffers that I currently have turned on here.
So one of the areas that would be covered, I'm thinking senior housing right now, would be the Limerick out by Sain Road.
Also, all of the buildings on Chapel Valley, Wilshire,
Okay.
which are a lot of
Would
senior
be covered
housing.
with the 75.
Yeah.
And if the 65 was extended to run up to Hatchery Hill, there's where you see McKee Farms Park, the word park is in white, but that would also be a mile-wide buffer around Fish Hatchery Road there, because the route would go up Fish Hatchery Road, which is not shown here.
Correct. This is only the current route. So as you can see, there are a couple of pockets in here that would not necessarily be served with that half mile.
Yeah, that's Madison up north of your cursor.
This is, yeah. But this section of Swan Creek and then this section of the Dolly neighborhood here. I'm sure we could have discussions with Metro about what to do about those areas, because it would be extremely frustrating to desire paratransit and be in that bubble that doesn't get it. So that would be something we definitely discuss when we enacted those route expansions.
That buffer around Fish Hatchery that I mentioned would be a little wider because of the Brendan Loop in 26 when the south paratransit route, BRT route comes in.
Does this cover Cesta? It looks like it's right on the edge there at the, right, if you kind of zoom in, right where the pin goes from Lacey to East Sherrill. The Limerick looks like it would be, is that right? Just a little bit, okay, yeah, it would be right on the line. Because that's, yeah, just to the northwest of that roundabout there on the map. So,
Yeah, and this is with the current route.
okay.
And with new development in Fahey Fields, Hartung Fields, these routes are subject to modification to hit more heavy multifamily. I notice on the southwest corner of what you're showing now, Ross, you're showing the extension of the 75 into Verona, and that would not be an all-day route under the referendum proposal.
Correct, yes. We should just focus on what's in the city limits of Fitchburg. There's a possibility that gets extended to all-day service. I would be
very surprised.
Because Verona would have to cover all the hours within their borders.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the Route
And Epic
75.
would not be interested in that.
Yeah, because right now all that's covered by Epic. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
What defines all day? It's not really 24 hours, is it?
No, it's not 24 hours. It's
Their service limits are generally, there's between 5 and 6 to what time at night?
Well, I think there's one block of time in the clock where the route is active, rather than 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. Is that a fair assessment?
right, but you also
All-day routes also cover not only the midday, but also evening.
Yeah.
I think Jill has her hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd love to see Jill.
hey, let's hear it, Jill.
Okay, thank you. I just want to, so the folks that live at Traceway and the High Line, I'm just not sure, just because like the 65 and 75 are going to be expanded and they're not on, they're not North Fish Hatchery route, can those folks then still qualify to get down to the senior center? Because they're already in a regular route?
Not currently. They
So
would.
the origin
No,
of
if the referendum
destination has
passed.
to be in the paratransit zone.
If the referendum passed, then yes.
Okay, that's what, I didn't know if it was like, I was just trying to figure out if it was specific just to those darker green zones,
No.
but, so anybody that's on a regular route now, if the referendum passes, it includes all of the regular routes.
Yes, yeah, the only reason
Okay.
that one is darker than the other is just to show the new area versus the old area, but it will all just be the same area if the referendum passes.
Okay.
And
And then does it extend all the way over by like Allied Drive? Like I'm not quite sure. Like if folks were, by Allied Drive, even on the other side of Verona Road, would they then be eligible to come to the center? Do we have regular routes that all the way over there?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yes, that would be covered.
Yeah, you're
To the right. Yeah, there we go. So yes, these are covered currently.
But they can't get to the senior center.
But they can't get to the
senior
senior center.
destination is, the senior center's not in the green yet.
Yep.
That was the thing that really clicked with me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize before was that because this area is not on a fixed line, nobody that has access to paratransit can get.
Right.
Yes.
For some reason, that never clicked with me, and I was like,
Right.
oh, not only would it expand it to all these individuals that live in that region, but everyone that already has access can now get to our Fitchburg resources that they pay for in
And
taxes.
I do want to point out another thing now that we're getting into this discussion. You do have to be deemed eligible for paratransit.
Yes.
Right.
There's an
Not all
assessment procedure, it's not just if you're over 65, you can get paratransit.
Correct. But it's not based on income, it's based on physical ability.
Right. But if you are over 65, then you get the $1 fare.
If you qualify.
So
And so, I'm sorry, just for one more clarification. So it will go over New Fountains Apartments over King James Way. Can those folks get to the senior center if the referendum passes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They're close enough to a regular route.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see the actual where in the city we're at under these green blobs, but.
Jill, since we have you, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I'll put my camera on. Well, I think this would be awesome. I think it would be really, really helpful. Those pockets are a little concerning. It's going to be confusing if people are like, oh, I'm so close. But this is a huge step in the right direction if the referendum passes. We're doing a lot on the Commission on Aging level, looking at a lot of different options too, if this doesn't pass, or options to supplement even if it does. But in my personal opinion, it would certainly help a lot of older adults because if they qualify, and a lot of folks would, they can then choose when they want to come to the center for what, get around to their doctor's appointments and all kind of things. So, yeah.
we'll revolutionize programming at the senior center.
We're going to need a new building, Steve.
Yeah, well, we're not going to start
accommodate
that
all
one,
the business.
transportation and transit.
Well, when we do get you a new senior center, we'll be sure to put it in one of those white pockets.
I do remember
Perfect.
that back when I was on the council, there was a woman whose husband was eligible for paratransit who lived outside the area of eligibility, and she would take him to
Yes.
the area of eligibility and wait for him and he would get his ride and go wherever he needed to go.
I remember that. I
She
remember
had to
that.
take him like a quarter mile.
Yep, a quarter mile. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this seems really exciting and filling a need. I know I have one neighbor already who I talked to over the summer who had expressed the same thing, that, they would likely qualify for, I believe they said they would qualify for paratransit and wanted to get to the city complex here, and I believe specifically the senior center. And it's about a 1 3/4 mile walk, so very few people will be doing that, including yours truly. One question I have is, and I don't see it in the drop down on the left, but I don't know if this is something we could make, is if there's any overlay we could get that is this map with all of the, senior centers, the, assisted living facilities, any other, group homes for folks who have those, mobility challenges, what have you, just kind of overlay and see how many fit within here. I mean, it sounds like a good number of them do. I mean, I see future Cestas on there, Limerick, all the ones off of Wiltshire. I'm not as familiar with the western edge of town, but I wonder if I think that would be helpful information if and as there are changes to the routes, to make sure that we're doing our best to reach as many of those residents as possible.
Yeah, Jill, maybe you and I can sit down with Dakota and kind of go over that and have our, Dakota's our GIS specialist, so.
In the short term, if you could just do like a PDF of the current paratransit extension and then with the referendum potential changes, just so I can send out.
Screenshots of this.
Yeah, basically just like a screenshot of one of each so that I can show.
I'll probably have to go to make something more professional.
Okay,
I just
that's perfect.
Like 20 minutes today.
But if it
excellent work.
It would be good to have sooner rather than later, because we have another information session coming up. It would potentially be great to just like, even if it was not as professional, but yeah, it was like able to, because this is a key piece of the referendum, I think, that's not getting communicated.
Well, and I want to, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to point out, it's not just to the senior center. We had a call from a client about 3 weeks ago, obviously would qualify for paratransit hands down. So we do have drivers that take folks to medical appointments, but unfortunately, it's called the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, and their policy, which I really would like to fight, is that everybody has to have a COVID vaccination. And so this individual cannot have a COVID vaccination, has never been vaccinated, has a lot of multiple issues and needs a lot of rides to the doctors. And unfortunately, she lives in Fitchburg, she's over 60, but she didn't qualify for this, free transportation through the volunteer driver program because she didn't have a COVID vaccination. And she is not in a paratransit route right now, but this would allow her also to be able to get on paratransit and go to the doctor. So there's a lot of other places people need to go besides to the senior center. Of course, everybody should come to the senior center who's over 60, but there's a lot of needs out there that this would also serve. So it's nice to see.
And to Alder Gerhardt, to your point, I agree that this would be a really powerful thing to present at the referendum information sessions the ones that I've watched on YouTube, I don't recall seeing something to this level. I think that would be especially important, especially when we think of if we're expanding the all-day service, everybody kind of wins there, that this is not something where you have to add additional money on top of the referendum ask. This comes as part of a package with the expanded full routes as well. So I remember when we heard that in this room, thinking that was that I was already planning to vote yes, but that made me much more likely to emphatically support and embrace the opportunities that the expanded transit service with the referendum would bring.
The other thing that I try to explain.
And paratransit is for disabled as well. So we're talking about a larger population that would be, have this opportunity possibly to have more transportation.
Yeah, what you're saying,
right?
To clarify what Jill just said, disabled people who are not seniors.
Correct, I'm sorry. I'm correct, right, Ross?
Yes.
Yes.
It's basically just based on your ability. I mean, there's a list on this webpage.
Yep. Yeah.
Or on a different webpage, but your ability to basically navigate to the bus stop, whether it's,
exactly.
Visual,
balance,
mental, walking ability.
Yep. Yep. So I think just making sure it's not just about seniors, it's about a larger community for folks that can't drive due to some physical situation that prevents them from driving. So
the other thing that doesn't show right now is the fact that the 65 could make the connection between all of those routes. Close that gap. Because that's the other key, is that it looks so ridiculous when you look at it on a map and you're like, Why does that not connect? Like, it just seems so absurd.
We could run the 65 over to Hatchery Hill down Richardson Street and cover more territory.
And yeah, to that exact point, Alder Gerhard, when I was doing the week without driving, I needed to run an errand on Nesbitt to run to the vet, and I live in Swan Creek, and the only way to get there on transit was to take the 65 from Swan Creek all the way up to West Washington, then get on the 75 and go all the way back down to Nesbitt, and then by the time I would get to the vet and then get back, the 65 would be done running. I'm not sure about the 75. So then, now I had a 10-mile detour, and then I still have to walk 5 miles home.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
What you need is a cargo bike.
I've got that too. I ended up biking, but I don't know that I want to take my cat on that bumpy road over on that nice milled road on Nesbitt there in Pitcherona.
Schedule your vet appointments for next week.
Paratransit aside, I was going to make the same point. Is the 65 would meet up with the 75 near the intersection of McKee and Fish Hatchery Road. That would open up the possibility for people to get to the library and to City Hall via transit. Whereas right now, if you're even if the route stayed exactly as shown there. Yeah, you could get to City Hall, but only if you live in Swan Creek or Terra Mesa, right? If you live anywhere on the north or west side, you're kind of out of luck.
You can take the 75 up to West Wash, over to 65, down.
Not for a council meeting, because they'll start at 7:30.
I know it would take a long time potentially to get there, but it's at least possible. Like, that's the thing, it's like, it may take a little bit longer, you'd have to transfer, which isn't great, but at least you can get there. Yeah. With the connection, with the connection is possible, and that's the thing it's not right now.
As a commission, we're all very clear that the 65 needs to connect to future BRT and to Route B and 75.
So I'm not an expert on the Americans with Disabilities Act, but I am a reasonably good reader of web pages. And when I read the Federal Transit Administration's page on paratransit, I see no reference to 0.5 or half mile. I see many references to 3/4 of a mile.
Oh.
And so it appears to me that the federal guidelines indicate, this is just a quick reading while we're sitting here, 3/4 of a mile, and it may be that the city of Mass has chosen to
That's what I thought.
mile instead. So it seems like a point in negotiations.
Both numbers thrown around.
That's a good point.
This is on the DOT.gov website on paratransit. There's some FAQs and there's a lot of mentions of 3/4 of a mile.
And just to reiterate your credentials, you are a good reader of web
I can read
pages.
web pages.
I believe there was moderately good in there.
I remember that from when I was planning the Fitchburg Flyer 10 years ago, which would have come down, I was saying, boy, that seems narrow, that buffer zone. So I think that for our next meeting, Ross, if you could inquire as to Metro as to why a half and not 3/4.
Well, I'll clarify the distance first, and then if it's not 3/4, ask why that is.
Oh, the other thing that I read in here, and it's again a bit maybe due to nomenclature, is there really isn't a discussion of all-day service. There's a lot of mentions of fixed routes. That's the terminology that the Department of Transportation is using, is fixed routes. Mm-hmm. And to me, that seems like 65, 75 are fixed routes. In other words, they run at certain times of the day. And I would almost, in a quick reading of this, interpret it as meaning that during the times that the fixed route service of 65 and 75 are in operation, paratransit should be available during those hours. Mm-hmm. If you wanted paratransit at other times of the day, then that would not be available to you because that's not when the fixed route is operational. That's just a quick reading.
I see another question for Metro from Ross.
Yeah.
Okay. Keep reading those web pages.
And I just wanted to, I always hate saying this because I know staff is so overworked, but I do think getting the images together as quickly as possible is kind of somewhat urgent for the referendum.
And maybe you could make that half mile, 3/4 of a mile, slightly different colors of green so that.
Well, I'll just have whichever one is correct.
And I'd just like to reiterate something Ross said at an earlier meeting, which is that the lettered routes are all-day service. The numbered routes are the commute hours only. So that's a handy key if you're looking at this Madison Metro.
But the definition of what's a fixed route isn't really clear.
Well, all of Metro's routes are fixed routes except paratransit. They're fixed route, there are flexible and there are door-to-door. So there's three kinds of service. Fixed route, flexible, which can deviate but within a defined area, and then door-to-door can go anywhere within a bigger defined area.
Okay.
So those are the kinds of bus routes. And I think that the timing question is a good one for Metro to answer. Why is paratransit not available along the 65 while the 65 is operating?
Yeah.
And another interesting question would be if the 65 and 75 become all day, do they get letters?
I believe they will.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be after
I think this has been a great discussion, and I appreciate all the input and new knowledge.
And please thank Dakota for putting that together.
But let's wrap it up, and we will probably revisit this in the future. Any parting shots that really need to get out this week?
Send me that. I'll link to one of them.
Yes.
All right then. Future agenda items. So we know we are going to talk about. We get a report from the Planning Commission on what they think of parking requirements and these ideas for next time, and we will also spend the bulk of the meeting probably about working through what we think a Vision Zero resolution and policy would be like. Anything else that we should be talking about in the future that we can think of right now? If anything comes up, let me know, or Ross, and we will try to fit it in to a future meeting. Go
I
ahead.
started reading the Vision Zero materials and the reference to high
injury network.
Injury network. And I became aware, as we talked about, that the City of Madison, or Dane County, or City of Madison had worked with the University of Wisconsin's Transportation Laboratory to develop data associated with this. And so, being a taxpayer of the state of Wisconsin, I reached out to that laboratory and asked them to provide me access to that particular database. And I received a rejection from them that they were only allowed to provide that to people who had were involved in a State Department of Transportation project, and that if I could provide them a project number, then they would give me access to the data.
Okay.
And so right now, the average citizen can't access the data from the transportation laboratory.
So we would get it from the MPO.
Yeah, I do want to say this is not noticed on our agenda. This.
It was because we were saying
Future agenda
Vision
items.
Zero agenda item in the future. That was.
Okay.
Access to high injury network data.
Okay, so access to high injury network data from the TOPS lab could be a future item for a staff report. But I can tell you after we adjourn where you should be asking for that.
Okay.
But they're probably a contractor to the MPO, and they probably can't give it away to just any random person.
I don't consider myself completely random.
Adam, you're a good reader of websites. Yeah. Well qualified. Okay, so we will meet next on November 14th. If you need to be excused, let me know. And are there any other announcements? Seeing none, I'll motion for adjournment is in order.
Second.
Is in order. I need a first.
Oh, move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Micah and Elizabeth.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.